It's hot. As hot as I've ever known. We've already walked a marathon today. We did the same yesterday, and on all the days before that. We've still got miles to go today, and many, many more before we reach the end. I think again about Wilfred Thesiger, the adventurer whose journeys inspired our own, and I'm awed, yet again, by the hardships that he and his Bedou guides encountered out here in these silent, scorching sands of the Empty Quarter Desert. My name's Alastair Humphreys. I live in a little village in England, a pretty normal life, but I seem to have this curse of incurable wanderlust that sees me just wanting to head off on adventures around the world. So far this year I've rowed across the Atlantic Ocean and I've skied up onto the ice cap in Greenland. And I'm just hoping now that I can try and squeeze in one more big trip before the end of the year. So I've just sent an email to Leon. He's a friend of a friend. He's cycled around the world. He's just walked 3,000 miles across Mongolia and China, and this is what I said in my email. Hi Leon, hypothetically speaking, would you be interested in another long walk? 6 to 8 weeks, desert, pulling a cart, November, December, home for Christmas. Who can possibly say no to that?
When I got an email from Alastair Humphreys about doing this trip, I really couldn't say no. This is the sort of thing I love, and even though I didn't know this guy very well, I couldn't imagine anything better to do with a couple of months of my life. I'm really lucky in that I get to make a living from adventure, and by writing articles and giving talks I can make a career out of it. But what I love is actually going out there and doing the adventures, getting out into the wilds of the world for expeditions, and so this ticked all the boxes.
Wilfred Thesiger was an icon of British adventure, and he was one of my heroes. He was born in Ethiopia, and he fought with the SAS in World War II. After the war, he spent his life travelling and living in some of the wildest places on Earth. His greatest journey was crossing the Empty Quarter Desert. He tells that story in Arabian sands, and ever since I first read that book, I've dreamt that one day I would make a journey of my own, in Thesiger's footsteps, into the Empty Quarter Desert.
The Empty Quarter on the Arabian Peninsula is the largest sand desert in the world, and Wilfred Thesiger spent 5 years here in the 1940s. He travelled by camel, he survived on meagre rations, and sometimes had just 1 pint of water a day. Our journey is going to use him as the inspiration, but it will be very different in a number of ways. Firstly, we have no idea what to do with camels, and we can't afford them, so instead we will pull all of our supplies in a homemade cart. We also can't get into Saudi Arabia as Thesiger did because no tourist visas are issued anymore. So our journey will be 1,000 miles from the south coast of Oman, Salalah, passing through desert and small towns and finishing in the United Arab Emirates in the madness of Dubai.
I love the chance to be able to follow in the footsteps of a hero, even in just on a tiny fraction of what Thesiger did. Just to be out in the landscapes that he was in really excites me. I'm looking forward to just doing something that's in a new part of the world, something I've never done before, and also something that's refreshingly low-tech and simple, self-funded, self-organised, self-filmed. It's just the two of us out there doing this trip, doing it not really for any particular reason other than that it just excites the hell out of us, and I think that's a pretty good reason to go off on an adventure, really. So we leave for the desert a week today, and my main concern at the moment is our cart. It hasn't been built yet, and time is really ticking.
Pretty nervous about our cart. We've got a friend of Al's building the cart. I think he's done an amazing job. The only downside is that he's built it off the specifications that Al and I gave him, which means that essentially it's our idea and our cart, and we don't know anything about cards and have terrible ideas, so there's just an unnerving aspect to the fact that we're reliant on something that we designed. Should we want stuff? Get that. Hopefully it'll be fine.
It's stressful just twiddling our thumbs, so while we're waiting for the cart to be built, we're going to go to Eton, to Wilfred Thesiger's old school. It's probably the most famous school in the world, a school for kings and prime ministers. We want to try and get a bit more of a feel for Thesiger as a man. It seems he was very different to Leon and me. We're pretty normal people, we like normal life, home, pubs, stuff like that. Thesiger hated all that, and he was happy only away in the wild places. So I'm really excited to read his expedition diaries and get a bit of a sense of the man behind the legend. I guess all three of us are people who are drawn towards difficult challenges and difficult places, so there must be some sort of overlap between us somewhere.
I've got a feeling that my diary from this trip won't be quite as... Well, firstly, it won't be as neat. There'll be a heck of a lot more whinging in my diary.
Wilfred Thesiger's medium was photography, and although Al and I have no support team or camera crew, we still really want to make a film of the journey. In order to do that, we'll have to record everything ourselves, carry all of our equipment, as well as walking every single day. So for inspiration, we've come to Oxford, where all of Thesiger's superb pictures are now held.
We hold 74 personal albums compiled by Thesiger relating to his journeys in the UAE and Saudi Arabia and Yemen. Also 38,000 negatives, which have all been digitised. And there's about 4 albums which relate to the empty quarter crossing. For the most part, he's interested in characters. And there's this great quote from Arabian Sands where he says, the harder the life, the finer the type. And so he's really looking at the features, the expression on the face, in terms of the types of characters that are being formed by this harsh environment.
With our cart ready in the nick of time, we head to Margate of all places to test it on sand. It'll have to hold 100 litres of water, a month of food, and will weigh up to 300 kilograms. We're going to have to haul it for at least a marathon a day for 1,000 miles. And one afternoon's training on Margate Beach in the pouring rain doesn't really feel like particularly ideal preparation.
It's a wonderful setting for pulling a cart.
This doesn't work, I've run out of excuses. It's been a very useful exercise. I think it's raised a few questions about our cart design and, lots of things really.
Yeah, that was much harder than I expected. And it's relentless. You never get a second's rest.
20 minutes ago I was quite confident, and now I'm not so confident. And I'm really hot and really thirsty as well.
In about 15 degrees.
Yeah, after 20 minutes of work.
This is potentially our solitary day of sand testing for a desert expedition.
Outside dreamland. This could be turning into a very bad idea.
Salalah is where Wilfred Thesiger prepared for a trip across the empty quarter 65 years ago. He travelled with the local desert nomads, the Bedou, and came to the city to buy camels and supplies. While we were preparing for our own journey, Al and I will be staying with an expat mechanic called Claudio, who is a friend of a friend, and his wife Kathy. Our first job is to assemble our cart, which we have brought flat packed from the UK. This is 30 days worth of dinner, we hope. And then, for calories, we've got pure dairy, butter, ghee, which we'll take a nice healthy scoop of each night. The food needs to be light, cheap, long-lasting and full of energy, so we've ended up with a pretty horrible mix of noodles, meat and biscuits.
Once we turn off the road into the desert, it's going to be just a blissfully simple expedition. We have all of our food already, we have a limited supply of water, and we just walk out in the desert, experiencing this incredible emptiness. It's going to be brilliant.
I think we're finally just a few minutes from leaving. Al's packing up the rest of our stuff. We're going to do it. We're going to walk across the desert.
We said our goodbyes and set off on the expedition. With the cart fully loaded for the first time, it became apparent very quickly that we had a serious problem.
We've headed out of Claudia and Kathy's house out into Salalah with this insanely big cart, which is going to be absolute hell until we get to a desert.
One more. So to get out of town, we have to walk on the pavement, holding on to these straps, which is not ideal at all. But we just can't steer. We're sweating profusely already.
After 4 hours and an embarrassingly small amount of kilometres, we gave up. Our expedition was in tatters. Without the cart working properly, we had no chance of making it to Dubai. We called Claudio. He zoomed out to our rescue, accompanied by some of his team of mechanics. Immediately, Claudio comes up with some mad-sounding ideas for building a steering system.
If we do a triangle here, center bar here, pipe,
Yes.
the same frame, down here, down there.
His design certainly cannot be any worse than our own terrible efforts, so we just leave them to it and hope for the best. In the morning, we'll head to the workshop to see what happens.
The great thing about travel are the unexpected twists and turns that come up along the way. Things that at the time seem a real pain or a bit of a disaster, but lead to such fantastic chance encounters and random new experiences. Of course, it's very annoying that we've been delayed by 3 days. It's seriously jeopardized our chances of reaching Dubai. But we've had a great little adventure in Salalah. We've met fantastic, interesting people. Claudio, the mad Eritrean Italian, Mr. Fix-It.
I go mentally crazy.
We've met Pakistani welders, a guy who nearly chopped his fingers off in a rolling machine. This whole new culture of Oman that we would never have got to see through the industrial estates. And tonight we were out in a Omani meat joint eating camel goats cooked by this fantastic bearded, he looked like a Pashtu. And this is a proper Omani experience that was just wonderful.
And swivel point in the center.
Okay.
This is pulling, this is pushing.
Those guys stayed till 11 o'clock last night working on our cart. And then we're back there at 7 a.m. this morning.
I can't believe the changes in our cart since we arrived here. We've had new tyres, the floor, brakes, steerage systems, pulleys, ropes. We've tried all sorts of things. And now we've got this fantastic list of people's autographs all over the cart, all these kind people who've helped us out. What can I say?
Brake bastard.
Our biggest challenge right now is that the cart's built. It looks amazing, and I think it's going to work. But it's about 1:15. We definitely don't want to walk on these roads at night because it's just suicidal. So we've probably got to leave by 3 at the latest, and we've got to test it, drive back to their house, load it up, and go. So it's going to be tight.
My pessimistic nature worries about all the bad things that can happen, but the reality is that probably things are going to be great, and this time tomorrow we'll probably be well on the way out towards the empty quarter desert and the beginning of a heck of an exciting, difficult expedition. I'm really looking forward to it.
Oh, it's amazing! Look at this card! Yeah, next stop, that huge bloody hill.
Salalah is encircled by a steep range of hills, so once we'd navigated the mayhem of the city's busy roads, we were straight into some pretty tough pulling. We weren't yet used to the heat, the ration food, or hauling the heavy cart. But after 2 difficult yet beautiful days, we made it through the hills and descended down into the beginnings of the desert.
The next morning, we had an unexpected surprise by the roadside.
We just had an absolute result at the side of the road. Alastair's eagle eyes have spotted loads of packets of crisps that have fallen off the back of a lorry.
They're in date as well.
What flavour have we got?
Tomato flavour, potato sticks. Alhamdulillah. I'm surprisingly or worryingly chuffed about this.
Getting very, very hot. Shouldn't be this hard at this time of day. The appeal of walking through something like a desert is to see what happens to your mind and see just how your psychology reacts to being completely alone with so little stimulation. Tarmac roads kind of really undo all of that, because when you're on a tarmac road doing something stupid like pulling a cart, you just feel like an idiot. You see these people in their fast cars and motorbikes. You know, so the sooner we get off this road, the better.
After all our worries in Salalah about the cart, it's a huge relief that it's still going strong. We're on to day 3 now. We're soon about to turn off the road out into the desert, and that's when things will become, well, we'll learn a heck of a lot more about the suitability of the cart.
We have missed our turn off. Which is quite impressive in a desert with only 1 turn, and we missed it. We're going to head off west, slightly south, and try and intersect this gravel road going toward a place called Chishur.
I think this is probably the easiest desert you'll ever get for walking across with a cart, and it's very hard. It's very hot. Then the hills, even tiny little lumps, very, very hard with a cart that's heavy. Oh, it's difficult. But we're moving at a pleasant enough speed. Quite daunting, really. The prospect of a month and a half of this is quite hard.
Wind is really starting to pick up, and when we're walking it's beautiful because it cools us down and sometimes even pushes us along, but in the middle of the day it's so hot between 11 and 2. Finding shade in the desert is not easy, so we have to put up our tarpaulin, and as you can see that's a noisy and inadequate affair, so we spend a couple hours in the middle of the day sitting underneath this pile of plastic crap. It's just very, very unrelaxing. Comfortable there, Alastair?
No, I'm not comfortable. We've suffered a pretty major blow this morning, which is that our thermarest, the foam camping mats that we sleep on, have fallen off the back of our cart at some point this morning. We didn't realise until we set up our lunch break, and so now, having been thinking that my bed was a little bit uncomfortable, we've now got to spend the rest of the trip sleeping on the desert floor with absolutely no padding or insulation or scorpion protection whatsoever. So, pretty important morale boosting blow, unfortunately.
For me, exploration was a personal venture. I did not go to the Arabian desert to collect plants, nor to make a map. Such things were incidental. At heart, I knew that to write or even talk of my travels was to tarnish the achievement. I went there to find peace in the hardship of desert travel and the company of desert peoples.
It often seemed incredible to me, especially when I was on foot and conscious of the steps I was taking. Sometimes I counted my footsteps to a bush or to some other mark, and this number seemed but a trifle deducted from the sum that lay ahead of us. Yet I had no desire to travel faster. In this way there was time to notice things. The very slowness of our march diminished its monotony. I thought how terribly boring it would be to rush about this country in a car.
We've now been on the road just over a week, and I think slowly we're starting to get used to this life. Every morning when we wake up, we know exactly what we're doing and pack away, and we're back on the road and heading off into more desert. It normally takes a little period of time to get into that, and now I'm just used to having no exterior influences really in life. It's just head down and walk and see what the desert offers up. And unfortunately we've had to get back on this road for a few days just to make up some miles, which is slightly depressing, but even still the landscape all around is very lunar, very sparse, and so we just have time alone with our thoughts, and we just walk every day. It's a really simple life. Wake up, walk as far as we can, and go to sleep. And that simplicity is growing on me. It's hard, but it's growing on me.
Far from being the romantic, peaceful, solitude desert campsite that we're hoping for, we've camped somewhere pretty ghoulish with some sort of animal graveyard massacre site. And the whole reason we're here actually is because we suddenly saw up ahead of us some lights. They were flickering away and we had no idea what they were, and people seemed to be moving around us. As always happens on these trips, we ended up imagining all sorts of worst possible scenarios and freaking ourselves out quite a lot, so we sneaked off the road, which is how we've ended up in this animal's graveyard.
It gives me the shivers. I just can't work out why this is here. I'm pretty sure whatever the reason, it's probably a very good reason not to camp next door to it.
Frankly, I'm too knackered to care if they're murderers and I'm in a graveyard. I really don't care. I just want to go to sleep.
It's a real air of death about this place.
After losing our thermarests like total idiots, I think we've now just about redeemed ourselves. We found this fantastic but filthy camel hair laden prayer mat. We found it in the sand, and it's definitely not ideal. It's not luxury, but it's a heck of a lot better than the gravel floor we were expecting to spend the rest of the trip sleeping on.
This landscape is pretty much the same for hundreds of kilometres, and it changes little bits here and there, but when you walk through it like we're doing, every tiny little thing becomes of so much interest. On a morning like this, when you wake up and there's mist completely blanketing everything and you can barely see the sun, it makes it feel incredibly special, and suddenly we feel really lucky to be out here. And it's not going to last for very long, but I'm sure there'll be something else later today and something else tomorrow. There's a quite high chance that we're going to get absolutely nailed by a truck coming towards us. finally found a solution to our sleeping dilemma, which has been that we've been sleeping on this Bedou prayer mat. But today, passed through a little town, went on an exploratory jaunt, and came back with these two wonderful and particularly stylish mattresses.
Downside being that we now look ever more like rag and bone men. Our carts have got number plates strapped all over it. We've now got a prayer mat and two cheap floor mattresses strapped to the top. I don't think we're going to win any expedition awards.
The desert's just a great place for processing thoughts, and it's made me think about a lot of things. What am I doing with my life? Am I wasting it? Am I a bum? Probably. Should I still be a bum? Maybe.
You clearly weren't pulling hard enough.
Can I still be a bum and make a living from it? Who knows?
Nice, actually.
This is a real treat. Hard work after a full day and a few weeks of pulling this cart through the desert, but this is one of the moments we've been waiting for. This is the chance to walk through the desert into the night under the light of the full moon.
It's just beautiful. It's fantastic that the heat has gone away from the day, which is a joy in itself, and the novelty alone is stopping me getting too tired.
The full moon is something that happens regularly, and I never enjoy it. I never appreciate it anywhere else. And I think people who live in the desert, the Bedou, and Thesiger when he travelled here, are always blown away by it.
After an exhausting trek deep into the night, we finally arrive into Mookshin, the small oasis settlement where Thesiger himself struck out northwest into the wilds of the empty quarter proper.
It's a good feeling to be in Mookshin. It's a place that I've read about lots of times, and as is often the case with places you read about a lot, the reality is slightly underwhelming. When Thesiger came here, it was the last outpost where he could get some final supplies before heading into the desert, and I suppose the same still applies today, although we're sitting in a car park with a few effectively Pakistani burger vans. We've been on our feet for 15 hours now, so it's been a long day, and that's never a good frame of mind to consider launching off into a desert. But I think after a curry, bit of sleep, load up with water, I'll be ready for some adventure tomorrow. We've had a fabulous journey up through Oman so far, but it's certainly an experience that would have felt very alien to the Oman that Wilfred Thesiger knew. But from today, that changes. From today, when we leave Wadi Mookshin here and head out northeast, we're heading out into the empty quarter proper, right out into the desert, to a landscape which I'm assuming will be unchanged since Thesiger was here. And this then is the adventure that we really came here for. It's exciting, it's daunting, it's intriguing. It's going to be very difficult, but I feel more excited now than I felt for the entire journey so far.
I'm definitely feeling quite a lot of anticipation, but also apprehension, because this is serious desert. This is where you can't make mistakes. The heat is relentless. The terrain is quite hard for a cart. It's incredibly unforgiving. Stuck again.
There's so many uncertainties over this next stage of desert, but if it works out, then it's going to be amazing.
Dinner is served. You can see a million pictures of the sand dune, and never appreciate it until you get to run up one like a lunatic and jump along the ridgeline. That's just what life is all about. There's only so much you can take from pictures and from reading and television. You've really got to get out and do things to see what life has to offer. And so it's matching up to my expectations. It's hard, but it's wonderful. This is a really interesting and perhaps poignant part of Thesiger's book. He says here, "I knew that if I travelled here alone, the weight of this vast solitude would crush me utterly." I can appreciate that entirely out here. The combination of these enormous dunes which rise from the flat floor, and then these vast gravel plains extending out as far as the eye can see in every direction. They just combine to create a feeling of huge sky, huge ground, and just total, utter emptiness. It's beautiful, but it's pretty intimidating. The sun was scorching hot, and I felt empty, sick, and dizzy. As I struggled up the slope, knee-deep in shifting sand, my heart thumped wildly and my thirst grew worse. I found it difficult to swallow. Even my ears felt blocked, and yet I knew that it would be many intolerable hours before I could drink. We certainly don't have it that bad at all, but I'm thirsty all the time out here. I'm hungry all the time. I'm tired. I'm sick of having sand in my shirt. I'm sick of having sand everywhere. Our challenge, which we, I think, are accepting, is to embrace that, to embrace the unpleasantness, embrace the misery, and enjoy the reward of the desert. I'm hiding out here from the heat of the sun, and all we've got to try and get away from it is the shade from the cart, which is crap.
Completely knackered. My feet are killing me. My legs are killing me. And I can't remember a thing about today. It's just monotonous, exactly like yesterday, and exactly like tomorrow's going to be. I've quite enjoyed it in a weird way, but it seems fairly futile as well.
And the heat just slams down on you. It really messes with my head. I can't think straight, I can't see straight, everything just, it's all just a whirl of, I don't know what.
The scenery not changing and poles as clank, clank, clank as we walk. Nothing changes and the horizon doesn't get any nearer, and you just start questioning what on earth is the point.
All the bland, featureless things about it that attracted me to come out here are now just feeling monotonous and rubbish.
We've walked for hundreds and hundreds of miles already, and then I know then we can do it. I know we can walk for hundreds of miles, and yet before we get to the end, before we get across this desert, we've still got to cross hundreds and hundreds more miles of this endless flat gravel plain, and it's just mentally so hard to do. I know now we can do it, and if you know you can do it, then what's the point in doing it? I know I can do it. I know I can walk to Dubai. I know I can. I've got nothing to prove to myself or to other people. So why the hell am I doing it? Trudging and hurting and sweating.
As soon as you start to get negative, it just spirals more and more and more. And everything here just crushes you. There's just nothing really to lift your spirits out here.
What on earth am I constantly pushing myself for? Why can't I just be happy in one place like normal people?
Today's been just one of those crazy days. It started off really nice, waking up
under the stars with the nearly full moon, and then got progressively worse, as most of our days seem to do. And today was one of the hottest yet, really suffering in the heat. But after that, it just got a lot better. We met a Bedu truck driver called Ali, who was waiting to make us coffee, and he was such a cool guy, sitting there with his truck just as the sun was beginning to go down, and he made us some really beautiful coffee, gave us some dates. I always enjoy those conversations where you don't really know what the other person's saying, but you can communicate. A lot of communication is largely physical and through emotions rather than actually words.
Okay, camel. Okay. English, camel.
English what?
Camel.
Camel, huh?
Camel.
I've got a real buzz. It's possibly the coffee that Ali gave us.
Cheers.
And it feels pretty good watching the sunset. I feel like life could be a lot worse. I feel like I could be doing a lot worse right now.
I just feel so excited to be out here again. After the slight frustrating boredom, it just feels exactly the place that I want to be again, and it's great to have the buzz back, have the mojo back, and just be excited to be out here. Suddenly this is feeling like a real expedition, like a real 21st century version of the journey that Thesiger took. So life is very good right now.
We're now a really good chunk into our journey. We're really making progress through the empty quarter, and then hopefully in about a week or 10 days pop out into civilization once more.
For a Pepsi.
Alan is bloody Pepsi.
Behind me now is the first oil field we've seen on this trek. It's a pretty impressive sight, the huge black plumes of smoke billowing up into the blue sky and the orange flames flashing around at the bottom. And this, of course, is the whole reason that this entire region's developed, the black gold, the oil that's changed the Arabian Peninsula beyond imagination, and certainly for all time. Thesiger, when he was just about to end his travels here at the end of the 40s, he was lamenting the first explorations into this region by Shell, the oil companies, and he predicted that in the future people might see different things here, but nobody ever again would see the Arabia that he saw, and I think in many ways he's right. Whether that Arabia or this Arabia is better is a very different question altogether.
It feels like the end of the wild part of the empty quarter desert, which is a bit of a shame. It means we're entering back into civilization, and we'll still be in the desert, but we're going to hit blacktop roads and little towns, and then before long we're going to be in Dubai. We've been waiting a few days for something exciting to happen, and finally we've got it. Behind me is a hill, and when we climb it we might get to see something other than flat desert. I'm looking forward to it. I take it all back. These hills are a disaster. Hills are the most pointless feature in the entire universe. Give me back flat gravel plains. Give me back monotonous brown sandy desert. Never want to see another hill in my life. I am exhausted.
We've just arrived in Fahud, and it's really good to be back in civilization again. We just had a cup of tea, the height of luxury. We've just been having a good chat with some local lads, and then the call to prayer sounded from the mosque, and they all jumped into their pickup and drove off to pray. It's good to be in civilization, and it's good to be in Fahud, which is the original oil boom town for Oman. This is the first oil town in Oman, so it's an interesting and pretty important bit of history to see.
What's interesting in places like this is that although the way that we're doing these things is really very different from Thesiger, it's basically exactly the same concept. We have to
To survive, we need water and we need food. And the way we get water is by coming to little restaurants. The way Thesiger got water was by coming to fill up at wells, and really two couldn't be more different, but the essence is the same. To survive in the desert, you need the essentials for life.
Thesiger himself said that without the local people, his journey would have been a meaningless penance, and for us that's an important part of the trip, to meet people, to learn a bit about Oman, to interact with different people along the way. The kindness of people along the road's amazing. We don't want to be on the road, find it frustrating and annoying, but it's undoubtedly a great way to meet a random slice of people.
We are going to Dubai. Really? Yeah. We are like Bedu.
Bedu?
Yeah.
You have a milk of camel?
I don't like it. I like Pepsi. I'm an English Bedu.
The kindness that we've seen is just amazing.
Oh, are you sure?
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
That's amazing.
This is very good.
Proper desert food.
Yes.
Wow. Lorries stopping, giving us Coke and cake and thrusting bottles of water on us, and friendly beeps and waves from everyone trying to invite us for tea and coffee. And very good. Some guy we saw a couple of days ago, I jokingly said, "Oh, we need ice cream," and obviously he didn't have any, and now he passes us again 2 days later and says, "I'm sorry I couldn't find you ice cream, but I found you these," and gave us a bag of gifts. Yesterday, a lorry driver from Saudi Arabia stopped, insisted that when we get to Dubai we should call him and he'll kill one of his camels and we'll have a great feast. Ice cream in the desert. Thesiger would be mortified but also extremely jealous. I can't believe this.
Wow, that looks good.
Oh, this is amazing.
Thank you so much.
Oh,
Welcome.
Bit of a Oman souvenir we've been given. It's got a beautiful gold camel, the sand dunes, the palm tree. It's an amazing souvenir of our time here in Oman, made in China.
And now we've been given a few little presents from these people. Every time someone drives past and doesn't give us anything, we can sort of feel ourselves thinking, what a selfish person, they didn't even give us an apple or an orange. This is going to be one of them. Look at that. 3 lads in a truck driving past, and not even a little can of Pepsi for us.
Just a mere beep,
Just
wave,
a mere beep and a wave.
Friendly smile. Is that not enough for you?
No, not anymore. Things have changed.
You've changed.
I've changed.
So nice.
Now we've come out of the desert and we're now walking down this pretty big highway towards the border with the Emirates. Basically from here to Dubai we're on a road, trying not to get run over.
This is everything that Thesiger hated about modern life, the busy roads, the huge fence running the length of the border, and then of course all of the craziness of Dubai. But I think it's a really important part of our trip. This is what the modern Arabia is like. It would be a bit delusionary to spend the whole time just wandering around a sand dune and think you had any grasp of what life was like out here.
Every good journey needs a fittingly impressive destination point, and we're incredibly excited to finish in Dubai. It just feels like the complete antithesis of everything we've seen out in the middle of the empty quarter, and the height, quite literally, of the ridiculousness in Dubai is the Burj Al Khalifa, the tallest building in the world, and that will be our finish point.
Ever since we crossed the border from Oman into the Emirates, the roads have been stressful, busy, just not enjoyable at all.
We've realised that trying to haul our beast of a cart into the middle of Dubai was just a suicide mission. And so we're going to try to find a good home for the cart and carry on through the Emirates. This is definitely no longer a desert adventure, it's an urban challenge now.
We've now crossed the border into the United Arab Emirates. Thesiger took a photo of a lone fort in the desert from about this spot. Today, we're right in the middle of a city of 500,000 people.
So we're now at the Al Jalili fort, which sits in the middle of Al Ain, and our very clear mission now is to get rid of our cart, and what we're going to try and do is donate it to the Thesiger exhibition, which apparently is housed inside this fort, which is a nice idea, except they have no idea we're coming, and we have no idea whether there's any space for it. It's pretty clear we can't take this cart to Dubai, so we've got to get rid of this cart here. I guess whether they like it or not, they're going to end up with a new exhibit for the Thesiger Museum.
The security guard said that they didn't want us to put the trolley in here because they said it looks messy, which I thought was quite insulting. I think it looks very smart. Sat there next to the baby's pram.
This place is just incredible. So much more classy than I could have ever expected. They've got these amazing prints of him crossing the dunes, and now everything has an increased relevance. Everything's just slightly sharper, slightly more in focus. I'm noticing things now, like in this picture there's no clouds. In one of the pictures over there, there's clouds. They cast shadows onto the dunes, and I remember what that's like to see and how that made us feel. I've got to be honest, I'm now feeling pretty nervous about trying to give these people our card. This is such a really well-presented museum. We're going to try and get rid of our smelly, dirty, ramshackle cart here.
So, there we were, in this beautiful, air-conditioned museum. The cart would be great for them, we needed to get rid of it. It was a perfect combination. But we were stinking and weird, and the only way we managed to secure a quick meeting with the director of the museum was with just a wee bit of exaggeration, claiming to have emerged from the desert after the greatest expedition in 100 years, shooting a Hollywood-scale blockbuster. The director was gracious with his time, despite our appearance and the smell, though he did seem somewhat surprised when we offered him our beloved cart.
So we'd like to give it to you as a gift. Yes.
اوكي فاحنا نبغى بدورنا نهديكم الوسيله اللي احنا كنا نتقل فيها اللي هي السياره اللي برا عشان تعرضونها في المتحف عندكم اذا تبغون.
Thank you.
شكرا.
Thank you very much.
هاي مبادره جميله منكم يعني ونتمنى ونعرضها في المكان اذا انتم يعني راغبين في ذلك. If you want that, yes. Thank you very much for that, and it's good from you that you're going to give it to us.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we've dumped the cart, or rather not dumped the cart, we've ceremoniously presented it to the National Museum. And now we're walking out of Al Ain with these big packs on it. Hot afternoon, busy traffic. This is not fun.
To our surprise, this seemingly simple stretch of road to Dubai had a real sting in the tail for us, and these final few days proved to be some of the hardest and most agonising of all.
It's a pretty awful day. When expeditions get to this phase, there's really only one thing to do, and that's nail the painkillers, turn up the iPod very, very loud. So today is a day of painkillers and very loud music.
This expedition hasn't turned out at all how I thought it would, and perhaps that's why I've enjoyed it so much. When I arrived in Salalah, my plan was to travel with Leon through the empty quarter and to experience sand dunes and gravel plains and emptiness and what Thesiger describes as the silence which we have driven from our world. But the things I will treasure the most in this trip are the good people, the really incredibly kind, generous people we've met. This is not the Middle East of CNN and Fox News. This is the real Middle East, some of the kindest, most generous people I've ever met in the world. It's one of the safest parts of the world I've ever been. And to follow in the footsteps of Wilfred Thesiger, who's always been one of my travel heroes, but to actually come and to sample even a small amount of his journeys has really cemented him, for me, as one of my all-time travel writing and adventuring heroes and a true icon of British adventure.
Holy moly, that's big. I can't get my head around it. Crazy, isn't it?
The end is nigh. We've made it. We've done it all the way. It's been a hell of a trip.
With respect to Wilfred Thesiger, I think that these places are better places now than they were before. The wilderness is still here for anyone who wants it. The adventure is still there for anyone who would choose to seek it out. But there's a busy, modern, vibrant, cosmopolitan world here now. It's not just silence and emptiness. We shared so much with Thesiger on this journey. The heat, the slog, the dull food, the sense of isolation, yet so much was completely different. But when you follow a hero, their adventure is only really a catalyst. You can't replicate a journey because each one is unique and unpredictable and unrepeatable, and that's the magic of travel. We didn't really have the time, the money, or the expertise to do this trip, but we did it anyway. We pushed ourselves hard, really hard, and now we've done it. We've made it. Although our journeys and our personalities are very different, I think Thesiger summed it up well for all three of us with these words from Arabian Sands. I remembered my excitement when the chance came to go to the desert, the determination to cross it, and then the doubts and fears, the frustrations and moments of despair. Now we've crossed it. To others, our journey will have little importance. It didn't break any records or push any new limits. It was a personal experience, and the reward is nothing more than memories that will last us a lifetime. We're content with that.